Sweet singing in the choir, the money behind me when they are both gone green. Of the trees that are in the wood, the holly bears the crown. For the rising of the sun and the running of the deer, are they the merry heart, sweet singing in the choir.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning worship service brought to you from the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York. I'm Joanne Walsers, and I'll be helping to lead our service this morning. I've been a member of this congregation for 24 years. When I first moved to York, I bought a house in this neighborhood, and I was thrilled to find out that UUCY was located practically in my own backyard on Springettsbury Avenue. I had 2 young kids, and my family immediately felt that we had found our spiritual and political home and a beloved, supportive community of creative and committed individuals. Over the years, I've enjoyed so many events that I couldn't even start listing them now, or we would be into next week's service. I will say that as a former sexuality educator for Planned Parenthood during very tumultuous times, I always felt safe in our sanctuary and supported in my work. I've loved teaching OWL to our teens all these years, and I cherish the loving friendships I have with all of you here at UUCY. This Unitarian Universalist congregation is welcoming of all seekers after truth, beauty, justice, and compassion, cherishing our diversity of race, age, gender, sexual orientation and identity, religious background, and perspective on life. We come together again this morning for worship and fellowship as we greet old friends and new visitors alike. Although we cannot be together in person, we gather together in spirit and in community each and every Sunday. If you're a first-time visitor to our Zoom services, please feel free to introduce yourself by writing your name in the chat box and anything else that you would like to share. Everyone is also invited to type in that chat box any matters of the heart that you would like to share with the congregation today. Reverend Terry will read them later on in our service. Today is the second Sunday of the season of Advent, the period of waiting for the birth of the Christ child, as described in the New Testament Gospels of Mark and Luke. It is a time to celebrate hope and peace and love and joy. And it's also the season of giving presents to loved ones, family, and friends. After Thanksgiving, this expressions of gratitude, today we will celebrate generosity, including the generosity of spirit that is present in each and every one of us. And so, as is customary whenever Unitarian Universalists gather together, we begin our service by lighting a candle. Our candle flame represents the flaming chalice that is the symbol of the living tradition of our faith. We also invite you to light a candle at home as we share our chalice lighting words. Our chalice lighting words today were written by Reverend Terry. And so, December is upon us. The dark mornings and the short afternoons remind us that winter will soon be here. with its cold hand on our faces and ears. Yet in the crisp air of the late fall, before the electric blue winds of the winter drive us indoors, nature's hand is gentle yet. Gentle in the quiet places where our strength and our spirits can be restored. On a trail, by a lake or a stream, in the stillness of the dawn or the sunset, the leaves under our feet rustle like a yawn before the onset of sleep. We can feel the earth settling down for its long night's rest. And in that liminal space, we can feel our own transformation, our own becoming. May the light from this chalice that we light today remind us of the color of autumn leaves, of pine needles and acorns. May its silent flame guide us to a quiet place where the noise of the holiday season distracts us from nature's grace.
Good morning again, and welcome to our online Sunday morning worship service here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York. For those who are new to our virtual service this morning, my name is Reverend Terry Cummings, and I'm the minister of the church. It's good to be here with you this morning, even if we can't be together in person. The American poet Sarah Kay has written, "It is December, and nobody asked me if I was ready." I know the feeling well. We had such a mild November, for me filled with walks in the outdoors, that a sense of denial set in for me about the onset of winter. But the days are getting shorter. The afternoons are beginning to close in. A month ago, I would time my walk around Lake Williams to around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and that would give me enough time to get home before dark. But yesterday, I went there at 3:30. After my hour's walk, I was still barely able to make it home before darkness set in. The one thing that we humans are unable to change is the time of the setting of the sun and the rising of the sun and the turn of the seasons as our earth makes its way around the sun. That is one thing that we are unable to change. We've changed so much about our planet, but that is beyond our reach. Thank goodness. It's hard to believe that we are in our 8th month of bringing you our Sunday services over the internet instead of in person. A lot of work has been done since then by volunteers Doug Hober and Robert Felton, by our music director, Gretchen Decker, and Matthew Shinneman, our director of Lifespan Faith Development. Work that's been done to try to make our services just a little better, a little less clunky every single week. We have talked about doing everything pre-recorded and just simply putting it up pre-recorded on Sunday mornings for you. But personally, I like to be here with you in person, even if it's just for part of the service. And so for the time being, I think we'll continue the way we've been going, and I hope that you will continue to show up on Sunday mornings just to be with us, even though it is via the internet. Today, with the approach of the end of the year holidays and all of the stimuli we receive to buy the perfect gift, our service today celebrates the act of giving, seemingly simple, but so very complicated. But as we begin our service, let's take a moment to just settle in, maybe meditate just a little bit, just for a short while. I invite you to take a moment, settle into your chair, take a few deep breaths, and imagine yourself like a rock in the middle of a stream. All the water, all the noise just washing over you, having no effect on you. Focus on your breath. Let any negative thoughts or feelings you have in this moment just ease away from you. Breathe in, breathe out. Think about what you want to do with the rest of this day. Rake leaves, clean out your basement, fold laundry. Maybe you don't want to do anything today except relax. Take a walk outside. Curl up with a good book, or with a loved one, or a pet animal. Just picture that in your mind for just a few moments. Let your mind rest. Focus on your breathing. Think about having the perfect day. And as you think about that, breathe out one more time. Come back into this space. Be ready for the hour of worship about to unfold. And as you breathe, pay attention to our first hymn, Answering the Call of Love by Jason Shelton. Listen to the words now.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our God. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we feel the failure to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Shinneman. I am the Director of Lifespan Faith Development here at UUCY. It is good to be with you this morning. The story that I have to share with you is called The Most Generous Gift. Now you see, in a village near Jerusalem, long time ago, there was an old woman who didn't have much money, and she grew her own fruit and her own vegetables and had a chicken that gave her her eggs. And one day, she was walking down the road and she saw two copper pieces on the ground. They looked like what you and I would consider a penny, except that put together, they were worth less than even 1 penny. So she put them in her pocket and she thought to herself, I'll use these to buy myself a loaf of bread this evening. But she didn't. She held on to them. And a few days later, she heard from her neighbors that a teacher named Jesus was coming to speak at a worship service in a nearby temple. And she thought that it might be interesting to go to the service and to listen to what this teacher had to say. And when she got to the temple, there were many people there. Some she recognized, but there were some she didn't, and some said hello to her. And there was a man who moved over so that an entire family could sit together on a bench. And at the service, she prayed and she listened to this teacher Jesus speak, and she found herself feeling full of love and wonder. Now, I wonder what she could have heard that made her feel so full of love. What would make you feel so full of love? I encourage you to write in the chat what would make you feel full of love and wonder. Even better, if it happened in the midst of this congregation, I encourage you to write that. So as is typical of services even now, and was back then, there came a time when Jesus asked people to donate money to sustain the ministry. And there were people who were very rich and donated a lot of money. But this old woman, she reached into her pocket and she still had those 2 copper coins. And it was the only money in the world that she had. Yet she walked up to the donation box and she put in 1 of those pieces, half of all of the money she had. Why do you think she did that? Half of her money. She gave to this cause that filled her with love. And Jesus saw this woman put half of her money into the coin box, and he knew that she had given half of all that she had in the world. And he told the people assembled there for worship at this temple that her gift, it was more special than any of the gifts given, because she had given half of all the money that she had. And so Jesus encouraged people to be generous always, not just with money, but also generous with their hearts. This is, after all, the season of giving. It is not the season of receiving, as I like to remind my children so often. This is the season of giving. So I encourage you, now more than ever is a time to be generous, especially with your heart. Blessed be. Amen. Enjoy the rest of the worship service.
Our reading today is the poem, What is the Greatest Gift by Mary Oliver. What is the greatest gift? Could it be the world itself, the oceans, the meadowlark, the patience of the trees in the wind? Could it be love, with its sweet clamor of passion? Something else that entirely holds me in thrall, that you have a life that I wonder about, more than I wonder about my own, that you have a life courteous and intelligent, that I wonder about more than I wonder about my own, that you have a soul, your own, no one else's, that I wonder about more than I wonder about my own, so that I find my soul clapping its hands for yours more than my own.
If our service today leaves you with only one thing to take away, my hope is that it is this: Santa Claus was real. It's okay to believe in Santa Claus. Santa Claus is St. Nicholas, and he died on December the 6th of the year 343. Today is St. Nicholas's Day, the day of his death. St. Nicholas was an interesting person. He was one of the early Catholic bishops who attended the Council of Nicaea in the year 325. And it was he and others who came up with the doctrine of the Trinity, the Nicene Creed. So it's a little odd that we Unitarians celebrate St. Nicholas, given that we rejected the Trinity and followed our own Unitarian theology starting 200 years ago. But after almost 1700 years, I think we can forgive St. Nick for being part of the Trinity and the Nicene Creed. He is rather the patron saint of sailors and archers, repentant thieves, brewers, pawnbrokers, and unmarried people. He is also attributed to have done many miracles. And so he's known as Nicholas the Wonder Worker, which is pretty useful because at this time of the year, at his factory up in the high Arctic making toys for children, I'm sure he needs to be a wonder worker during this Christmas season. But St. Nicholas's reputation mostly is from the giving of gifts. There's a story about St. Nicholas that he heard about a man in his village who had 3 daughters who were of marriageable age, and the man had no money to give them as their dowry. And the man was afraid that the daughters would not marry and would have to support themselves by unsavory ways, unsavory means. And so St. Nicholas secretly put money through the man's mailbox at night to make a dowry for each of the three daughters. The man discovered St. Nicholas on the third event after his first 2 daughters had been married off, and confronted him. And St. Nicholas shared that he was giving the money secretly so that the girls would be able to have a husband. And it is this secret giving that is associated with St. Nicholas that has been translated into the Christmas story. But today is his day, December 6th. Growing up in England, Christmas was nothing like the Christmas that I discovered when I first came to America. We kids had one gift at Christmas. It was a significant gift, but nothing major. We looked forward to it, of course, but there would be one gift, and maybe something small, like an orange wrapped up in tinfoil. I remember receiving 10 shillings every Christmas from my grandparents, which seemed like a lot of money was about $20 at the time, but nothing like the kind of Christmas experience that I encountered when I first came to the United States. One of my fondest memories of Christmas as a child is my brothers and I and all the kids in our block would go carol singing after dark. We would go and knock on our neighbors' doors and we would sing Come All Ye Faithful and Jingle Bells and all the common songs of Christmas. And the people in the houses would give us money. We made out like bandits every year with our carol singing. It was such a wonderful thing to do. And I miss that. I miss that as part of the American experience. When I came to the United States in 1979, and I was the parent of a small child, Christmas was just a totally different thing. I remember being absolutely blown away by the number of presents wrapped on Christmas morning under the Christmas tree in my very, very Catholic extended family. It just seemed so weird that there were so many gifts, 8, 9, 10 gifts to every child, and some were big, some were small, but there was just so many of them. And I remember thinking back to a class that I took while I was in law school a couple of years before. When I was a law student at the LSE, I took a class in law and dispute resolution in pre-literate societies, which is basically ways that disputes were settled in primitive, we would say primitive, but that's not the word we would use now, societies that didn't have developed systems of money or factories or commerce or courts like we had. And I remember reading books about competitive gift exchanges, that people would give such lavish gifts that the recipient was shamed by the number of gifts that they were receiving. And that was a way of dishonoring people and securing power in very complex societies. And I remember thinking when I saw all of the gifts in the Christmas morning in my first few Christmases in the United States, of how it seemed so similar to the competitive gift exchanges that I had studied as I was a law student. Giving gifts is complicated. We say that it's better to give than receive, but in the human experience, that isn't always true. There is always some measure of reciprocity attached to the giving of every gift. And that's not so terrible. That's actually a good thing. It's good that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Because by giving gifts, we develop a kinship relationship with the recipient. If you want to buy a good book to read this holiday season, treat yourself to a book that was written in 1925 by the French anthropologist Marcel Mauss, M-A-U-S-S. It's called The Gift. Most argue that there are no such thing as free gifts. Each gift is imbued with spiritual mechanisms, engaging the honor of both giver and receiver. And these transactions transcend the divisions between the spiritual and the material in a way that is almost magical. In our 21st century American economy, there's a strong distinction between objects and people through the notion of private property. We sell things for a price and we give up our title to them and they are gone. But in a gift economy, objects are not sold. When they are transferred, a part of the giver is transferred with them. And there's just a tradition that the gift will be returned one day and that the recipient will reciprocate the giving of the gift. In a gift economy, gifts are inalienable. They must be returned. The giving of a gift creates a gift debt that has to be repaid. In other words, gift giving creates a social bond that is assumed to continue through space and time until the future moment of the next exchange. Think of the consequences of this for the broader society. In gift economies, because there's always a reciprocity, things that are given get things in return. In our wage economy, people go to work, they're paid wages, and that's the end of it. In a gift economy, because there's reciprocity, there's social insurance, our equivalent of social security, socialized medicine, unemployment. These are the gifts that are given in return for the giving of labor. Our American economy has gotten so far away from the time-honored traditions of gift economies that span the globe and human history. When I lived in New York City, I would frequently see people on the street panhandling, and I would give them money out of my pocket. I used to carry a couple of dollars, even a $5 bill with me always, because when I would see people, I would give them some money. But an act of charity is not a gift. A gift always has something connected to it, something that comes back with it. When I spoke about Santa Claus putting money in people's mailboxes, in the old man's mailbox for his daughter, he wasn't just giving money for the daughters. He was contributing to a system of kinship, of families connecting, part of the tribe, part of the community, so that connections would be made between peoples. Not just an empty gift. Santa Claus was giving something in the expectation of something in return. That's what gifts are about. They're mutual. And at Christmas time, when we exchange gifts, we celebrate that mutuality. I personally love giving gifts. I've always enjoyed it. I love giving money to the panhandlers in New York City. I love giving gifts to my kids and my friends. It's something that brings me great joy. And I suspect that many of you folks out there also would rather give than receive. Some of us, myself included, however, feel awkward when we receive gifts. I feel funny when people give me a gift. I feel unworthy. And that's part of the upbringing that I've had, the socialization that I've had about giving gifts, because somehow the acceptance of gifts carries with it this sense of reciprocity, that if I accept a gift, I'll have to give something back. But that's not normal. Since time immemorial, human beings have been giving gifts with the expectation that they will be repaid in one way, shape, or form. That's how societies develop. It's how human beings learn to survive. But in that, something deeper is tied up, more than just mutual reciprocity, more than just survival. What is tied up in the giving of gifts is love, basic human love. We give because we love one another, and we want and hope to be loved in return, and that's okay. So this coming Christmas, when we exchange gifts, know that, yes, there's a mutuality. Yes, there's a creation of a bond, but it's not an unhealthy one. It is the exchange of love. That's what we're doing. We're giving love in the hope that we will get it back from our spouses, from our friends, from our children, from those we share our life with. It is the exchange of love. And for me, that is the greatest gift of all that we exchange at this time of year. Simple love. And knowing that Santa Claus really does exist. That's a pretty cool thing too. May it always be so. And now let us go to our UU hymn. Not love is the greatest gift of all, but life is the greatest gift of all. And those two are very intertwined. Maybe so. We come to that time in our service where we share gifts with our congregation and with our Share the Plate partner. And we also share matters of the heart with one another. I see that Doug or Robert have pasted into the chat box the ways that you can give online during our worship service this morning. And we are so grateful for everything that you can afford to give to the church and to our Share the Plate partner. Our Share the Plate partner during the month of December is Put People First. Put People First gives voice to everyday people who are struggling to meet their basic needs. They define basic needs as things needed to live healthy and fulfilling lives. Things like education, housing, healthcare, jobs at living wages, food, and a healthy environment. They are a human rights organization with a current campaign for the human right to health care. Everyone deserves the care they need when they need it without going broke. This is especially important in the midst of a global pandemic. And at this time in our service, we're going to show you just a short video from Put People First. And while that's playing, I encourage you, please, to look at the instructions in the chat to give online. Your gifts will be used wisely and well and are so gratefully received. Thank you.
Everybody
has a right
to live
health care. Everybody
Don't stop.
The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
Class! When we get organized, the system won't last.
We're urban, we're rural, we're working class.
We're on Broad Street heading south, and we're marching so that people can hear our voices. So we're here to let people know that we're not going to just stand back and let you cut our health care off and just treat us as we're disposable. We're not. So we're here marching so that everybody can hear us.
We'll be starting right here and then marching slowly down to Hahnemann Hospital to show people here in Philadelphia and around the country that the problem is the system that would spend our money renovating a police headquarters while a hospital sits empty and abandoned by the private equity manager who owns it, Joel Friedman, who is hoping to sell it to produce luxury housing. And we're calling out the mayor, Health Commissioner Thomas Farley, and Governor Wolf for standing by and letting this happen.
Too many years we've been divided, now it's time to unify. We're getting into step to win our freedom. A bit louder. We're getting into step. We're getting into step. We're getting into step to win our freedom. Too many years we've been divided, now it's time to unify. We're getting into step to win our freedom.
We believe that we can win. We believe that we can win. We believe that everybody has a right to live.
Last time, make it live.
We're getting into step to win our freedom. Too many years we've been divided, now it's time to unify. We're getting into step to win our freedom. Beautiful.
Samavim rachuvot, המהלך על כנפי רוח
לבשת עוד תאור כסלמה, נוטה שמיים קליע, הקרא במים עליותיו, הסמבים רכובו, המהלך על כנפי רוח, עושה מלאכיו רוחות, משרתיו ואש לוהט, יסד ארץ על מכוניה, בתיבות עולם ועד.